of change through the day. The winds are pretty light, so if you've got the sunny spells, it feels quite pleasant with temperatures getting up into the teens. If you're stuck under the gloom, then it does feel quite cool with temperatures a touch below the average for the time of year. Through the course of Wednesday evening, we don't see a great deal of change. Keep some clearer skies across parts of Scotland, which could again allow a little bit of mist to form and some thicker cloud and the odd shower in the east. There's the outlook for Thursday and into the weekend. We are likely to see something of a change as we go towards Sunday.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic updates show issues on several routes this evening. The M40 southbound has a lane closure between Pentyler and Llanlass due to congestion. Stockton-on-Tees faces disruption on the A19 northbound with a broken down vehicle and lane closures. The M25 anti-clockwise in Kent has a 30-minute delay between junctions 2 and 1A. Devon reports the A38 westbound with a lane closure due to a broken down vehicle. The A38 southbound in Derbyshire sees increased congestion. And on the trains, cross-country services between Brockenhurst and Bournemouth face disruptions, as do Great Western Railway services between Ash and Guildford. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's just 3 weeks left to see how you could be our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Hello everybody, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Jubes and Co. Coming up tonight, dramatic scenes in court. Today, an illegal migrant was sent to prison for 5 years for threatening to kill Nigel Farage. In response, Nigel asked the million-dollar question: how many more men like this are we letting into our country? And of course, we're all pretty much expecting tax rises in the budget next month. And guess what? Apparently, the Labour Party looks set to blame that on Brexit. OK, and there's more worse. The struggling Birmingham City Councillors' unions get a historic win there in their fight to get the work of women recognised as equal value to that of men. And of course, pressure is rising on the Labour Party once again when it comes to China Spygate. So you tell me, what should happen next? Keeping me company tonight, I've got the Tory peer Baroness Foster and Labour MP David Pinto Dashinsky. But before we get stuck in, here's your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story tonight, we start with breaking news. Hamas has said it will hand over 4 more bodies of Israeli hostages later, according to officials there. It comes less than 24 hours after the group released 4 coffins, leaving 24 still in Gaza, but warned it could take time to find the rest. Meanwhile, growing uncertainty tonight over the peace deal's next steps. Israel has now told the UN it will cut the number of aid trucks entering Gaza in half to just 300 a day. It's also banning all fuel and gas except for essential humanitarian use. Israel media reports are also suggesting the Rafah crossing with Egypt will stay closed after Hamas missed its deadline to return all hostages' remains. Well, despite the uncertainty, President Donald Trump has just said that the next stage, phase 2 of the Gaza peace deal to permanently end the war, is now underway.
And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity.
Just to bring you more on that breaking news, in the last few minutes, Donald Trump has said a big burden has been lifted in the Middle East, but that the job is not yet done. That is in a post on Truth Social, the US president saying the dead have not been returned by Hamas as promised. But continuing in that post, phase 2 of the Gaza peace deal begins, he says, right now. Well, Sir Keir Starmer says the UK's role in that peace plan is a source of great pride, but warns that making the peace last will be no small challenge.
As a result of the peace plan led by President Trump, we have the chance, and it is a chance, to bring a terrible chapter in history finally to a close. Mr. Speaker, it's a moment of profound relief for this House, for this nation, indeed for the whole world. But it is tempered, of course, by the knowledge that for the hostages and their families, for the loved ones of those killed on October the 7th, and for the innocent civilians in Gaza, the dead, the bereaved, the starving, this has been 2 years of living hell.
In other news tonight, an Afghan migrant who came to the UK on a small boat has been jailed for threatening to kill the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage in a TikTok video. 26-year-old Fayez Khan made that threat last October in a clip Mr Farage described as pretty chilling. Khan has been sentenced to 5 years at Southwark Crown Court after being found guilty of making threats to kill and entering the UK illegally. The court heard he gave a false name to British authorities, with Swedish officials saying he's actually 31-year-old Fayed Husseini, who was with a criminal record in Sweden. Mr Farage says, though, he is pleased with today's sentence.
The only reason we know about this guy is because somebody sent it to me on TikTok. And it makes me wonder, how many other Madapassers are there now in this country? Or will there be as the boats continue to cross the channel? So I'm pleased with the judgment, but deeply, deeply concerned that this guy will be out free in 18 months.
The Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is demanding answers over claims that the government tried to cosy up to China. It follows the collapse of a high-profile spying case against 2 men accused of working for Beijing. Mrs Badenoch says the government refused to share vital information with prosecutors, causing the charges to be dropped. Downing Street, though, insists its National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell had no role in that decision, while the Security Minister Dan Jarvis has dismissed the allegations as baseless. And the UK is set to face the highest inflation in the G7 over the next 2 years, according to the International Monetary Fund. The IMF says price growth will average 3.4% in 2025, easing slightly to 2.5% the following year, both higher than earlier forecast and well above the Bank of England's 2% target. It comes as inflation, now at 3.8%, has been driven by rising food, hospitality and labour costs. The IMF also upgraded the UK's growth forecast for this year, but warned of a slowdown in 2026. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has welcomed the IMF's improved growth outlook, but the opposition says the figures make for grim reading for working families. Those are your 6 o'clock headlines. I'll be back with you in an hour. Now, though, it's over to Michelle.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you very much for that. Hello and good evening to each and every single one of you. How are you tonight? I do hope you're well and that you've had a nice day. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes and Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel. I've got the Tory peer and former MEP, Baroness Jacqueline Foster, and new face, we like those, Labour MP David Pinto Zashinsky. Good evening to both of you. You're very welcome tonight, as of course are you. And you know the drill at home. You can join the conversation in all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay. Or, of course, you can tweet and you can X me so much, ladies and gents, that we need to discuss tonight. But, of course, you've just been hearing in those bulletins there, Donald Trump, he's just taken to Truth Social in capital letters. All 20 hostages are back and feeling as good as can be expected. A big burden has been lifted, but the job is not done, he says. The dead have not been returned as promised. Phase 2 begins right now, he says. Your thoughts, Jacqueline?
Well, I think he's absolutely spot on. We don't want anything to jeopardise this peace deal, basically. But Hamas have got to produce the remaining 24 deceased bodies very shortly. They've only allowed 4 out. It's not good enough. They have to lay down their arms. And at the moment, obviously, we're subject to gang fighting and all sorts of assassinations going on between gangs in Gaza. So I think there's a real job to be done, and I think Israel is trying to get some sort of control there.
David?
Thank you, Michelle. And look, I think Jacqueline and I will be, not far apart on this issue. It's such a relief to have a ceasefire in place, to have the hostages back home, to have an end to the suffering in Gaza. But now we need to see, and I think we're all united in wanting to see, A, the conditions absolutely held to, and B, that progress to phase 2, where, because Jacqueline's right, there must be absolutely no role whatsoever for Hamas. We must see a monitoring force, an international stabilisation force, and a move quickly to a transitional government. But that is all what comes next.
Well, time shall tell. We'll watch that one with bated breath. But look, to matters here in this country, I'll just get stuck straight into this story. Just take a watch and a listen of this.
Englishman, Nigel Pasa, don't talk about me. You not know me. I come to England because I want marriage with your sister. Don't talk about me more. Delete a video. This is not good, my friend. You not know me. I gonna come to England. I gonna mother. Pasa man, you know.
Absolute state of that. Anyway, he has now found himself sentenced to 5 years. That is a small boat migrant. I don't know why I keep calling these things small boats. I'm not calling them that anymore. They're absolutely ginormous vessels, these things, and growing, it feels, by the week. Anyway, he's now being sent to prison. He was kicking off left, right and centre, had to be physically yanked down to that cell. He was bawling and shouting. He wants to go back to Afghanistan. Reckons that Nigel Farage has only brought this case because he's using him as an attempt to be Prime Minister. Let's listen to Nigel Farage in response outside the court today.
The only reason we know about this guy is because somebody sent it to me on TikTok. And it makes me wonder, how many other madder passers are there now in this country? Or will there be as the boats continue to cross the channel?
I mean, that for me is the million-dollar question. I mean, Nigel also was raising the fact that this guy's potentially going to be out in 18 months. The guy clearly saying that he wants to be deported, he wants to go now. I mean, it's just all so ridiculous. But what do you think to it?
Well, I think it's absolutely outrageous. I mean, the guy was in Sweden, apparently. He has a criminal record. He then ends up somehow on our shores. You know, to have this threat towards a leader of a political party, towards anybody, frankly, is completely ridiculous. I think the sentence was probably appropriate. The judges have guidelines to which they have to adhere. But by the same token, where Nigel's quite right, 18 months, and we have no idea what he would do. To me, he shouldn't see the light of day at all in this country and should be immediately deported wherever he's come from. I don't even care what the conditions are like, as soon as he's released from prison.
David, we are seeing more and more crimes committed by these people that come over on these boats. I would actually argue that we're probably seeing a lot more crimes committed by them than the people actually know. I think there's a lot of cover-ups going. You've just seen a recent case. I think it was the Sun newspaper actually applied to get information released that the people that were being accused of raping children were so-called asylum seekers. So I do believe that we don't fully understand the total extent of all of this. Why is the Labour Party not declaring a national security emergency when it comes to these not-so-small boat crossings?
Well, look, let me firstly just deal with the point on Nigel Farage, because I'm really struck. So on Wednesday, we will mark the anniversary of the murder of David Amos. For your viewers at home, that was a Conservative MP who was murdered by a constituent. We also, of course, had Joe Cox, who was also killed. And for our democracy to work, people in public life need to be safe. The threats against Nigel Farage are despicable and disgraceful. I'm glad that man has faced the sentence he faces, and he says he wants to go back to Afghanistan. We're going to do all in our power to fulfil his wish and to make sure that he is not on our shores. To the broader point about migration, look, we've taken a really tough line on this, so that, for instance, you'll know it's under this government that we've actually changed the rules so that people accused of sexual crimes can't apply for asylum. You'll know that under this government we've actually increased the deportation of offenders, foreign national offenders, by 14%. Under this government we've seen 35,000 people sent back, and under this government we've got the returns agreement, which the Conservative government tried to get for years and years and years and failed, actually in operation and beginning to work. Look, to deal with these illegal boat crossings, to deal with the small boats problem, you need practical solutions to what is a really serious problem, and that is what this government is doing. Not the gimmicks, not the kind of sticking plaster solutions that sound good on a headline but don't work. I'm still struck by the fact that the Rwanda schemes cost £700 million and only returned 4 volunteers. It would have been cheaper to buy them each a super yacht, right? And so it's about actual solutions that work, and that's what this government's doing.
I'll tell you what my viewers will be struck by, the fact that these not-so-small boat crossings are at the highest numbers that they've ever been, and rising. And people at home are struck by how unsafe they now feel in their own communities. People at home are struck by how unsafe they feel sending their children to school. They are struck by how quickly their communities and the people within it are changing at out of control speed. They cannot understand why the government is not declaring a national security emergency here.
Well, look, but hang on. This is about. Sorry, but this is actually about practical.
Why are you not declaring a national security emergency?
Look, we are absolutely taking these steps required to turn this around. That's why.
We're not turning it around. You're turning it in the wrong direction.
No, that's not true at all.
Sorry,
that's just not right, Michelle. That's just no. Sorry, let me finish for a second. Let me finish. No.
53,000 since January. 53,000 people have arrived on small boats. 53,000. You have a wish list. I've got no issue with your wish list of ways to try to deport people. When we were in government, the serious steps we were trying to take to deal with this, the Labour opposition opposed it.
This is sorry.
On the illegal immigration bill. However, we are where we are. For you to sneer at the issue over Rwanda, talking about 4 people, the reason Rwanda never got off the ground was clearly because we had an election. But it's ironic, isn't it? Because other countries are now using Rwanda, which was a perfectly safe place, and yet you fought tooth and nail when you were in opposition.
Jacqueline, I'm going to have to stop you. I'm going to have to stop you because that is nonsense. That is nonsense on stilts. And while Rwanda was coming in, 84,000 people came here. It wasn't a deterrent. It was a gimmick. Just like all the other gimmicks that your government did. And on your watch, you promised as a party that you would bring down net migration to tens of thousands. By the time you left, it was almost 1 million people. Since we've come in, we've halved it. That's the first point. And since then, overall net migration, we've halved overall net migration down from your peak. Secondly, let me finish. Secondly, we've taken action on hotels. We've taken action on decisions. We now have twice as many asylum decisions as under you. We've saved £1 billion on hotels already. Look, of course there's still a long way to go. But the fact is, we're making real progress by taking practical, pracmatic steps. Not the fairy tale fake answers that your government trafficked in with no impact. And you haven't, Jacqueline, what you need to do is come on here and apologise to people for allowing migration to get out of control on your watch. Because that's on you.
You need to apologise for misleading. You've brought in a scheme called One In and One Out. And there've been, I think, 26 people or 6 people or whatever it is. I mean, most people watching this programme, when you came up with the scheme for One In, One Out, it's not One In, One Out. It might be one out and there's about another 27 come in. I mean, this
is a deal that your government tried to negotiate for years. We delivered it.
No,
you couldn't.
Stop
Simple.
For a minute. One In, One Out is ludicrous. It's a joke. It's patronising the British public as though they can't count, as though certain people who don't know what maths is in the first place. It's a ludicrous scheme. And the thing is, you're trying to pretend that you are doing certain things, and you think that the British people haven't noticed.
Absolutely not, Jacqueline. We're actually taking the practical steps. We're very clear that you can't turn around the whole problem overnight. A problem that you created.
You've been in 16 months.
16 months. You were in for 14 years.
It doesn't make any
At the start, no, I'm sorry, it does. At the start, you were promising net migration in the tens of thousands. By the time you left, it was almost 1 million
that was
a
10
year.
Years ago.
It tripled.
I agree.
You know.
I agree.
And so what you need to do is come on and start by apologising, Jacqueline. That's true for the Conservative Party. Well, yes, I think
this is the typical little Labour phrase. Oh, we don't like your tone. Oh, you must apologise.
I'm not saying you don't like your tone. You're just wrong.
You fought us tooth and nail in opposition for everything we tried to do to get a handle on a lot of this. So don't come on being Mr. Self-righteous.
No, I'm not.
Can't even
I'm just pointing out that what you had was gimmicks, not real solutions.
Nobody's falling for anything you've said.
Well,
Trust
you
me.
are the great British people and you can have the final say. Do you agree with either of them? Do you agree with neither of them? Get in touch all the usual ways. So much that we need to discuss after the break. We all know that by now there's highly likely going to be some tax rises coming our way. Whose fault is that? Is it the fault of Brexit? I'll see you in 2.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Hello everybody, Michelle Dewberry, Jubes and Co alongside you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got Baroness Jacqueline Foster and I've got David Pinto Zashinsky. Now, you lot are not backwards in coming forwards when it comes to your thoughts on migration. I can tell you that. The bad news for you, both, is actually the viewers blame both of you. They don't seem to think that either of you have got the Senate don't think that you guys had a good handle on it, and they don't necessarily trust that you guys are going to have one either. Look, let's talk about the budget, shall we? We all know that by now it's looking likely that there will be some tax rises coming our way. As to who they're going to affect and what they're going to look like, the jury is still out. But why? Why are they necessary, perhaps? The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says that he's now glad that people can accept that Brexit is a problem. People now suggesting that the Labour Party are paving the way to blame any additional tax rises on Brexit. Your thoughts, David?
Well, look, the people voted for Brexit. We accept that decision. And I think what Wes was getting at was that the previous government promised that it would deliver a load of benefits coming out of Brexit, and its deals failed to do that. And what we've been trying to do as a government is fix that, and that's why the deal we struck with Europe has yielded real advantages. And I think it's advantages that you're viewers will feel directly. So, for instance, Aldi and Morrison's say that the deal we struck will bring down prices in the shops. Obviously, we have a deal on fishing. We also have, big deals that will help on defence, on international cooperation. And the reason that's important is, so let me give you an example. When the Conservatives negotiated their not remotely other than deal ready deal, they forgot to leave in the conditions that meant that if you were found guilty of people smuggling in an EU country, you'd be automatically barred from here. Well, we've actually got that back in. And so there's real change and real progress. It isn't about blaming Brexit, it's about making sure we get the best deal for Britain.
Jacqueline?
Well, it is about blaming Brexit. And I shouldn't know, I spent 20 years in Brussels and 15 in the European Parliament. And what too many, including the leader of the Labour Party, who's now the Prime Minister, did, they did everything to really refute the result of the referendum, whereby 17.4 million people voted to leave. It was always going to be a challenge, and as an MEP, I said myself, I supported it, but it was going to be a long haul. It was not going to be a short fix. We were up against a civil service that didn't want to recognise it, and we were up against people like Keir Starmer, who wanted to call for a second referendum. So Brexit, getting out of the blocks, was very, very difficult indeed. However, if we come to where we are now, I think it's a complete cop-out in terms of what Wes Streeting is saying, because what the government have done recently is they have blown their trumpet over a deal with the US. They've been blowing their trumpet with a deal with India, where the Prime Minister's
deals your government couldn't get.
They could not have done a deal. If we'd have been members of the EU, they could not have done a deal with either the US or India, because trade deals were done by the EU and you had to be part of the EU. So that's one separate issue. That could not have happened if we'd have still been members of the EU. But as I said, I think Wes is... I think they're looking for... I think the budget's going to be horrendous. The first budget was horrendous. The consequences have been horrendous for the British public. And I don't see anything good coming out of this soon. They've made arrangements. They've done deals with trade unions without a quid pro quo to get productivity. She has overspent by absolute billions, and this has been in the first 12 months. And I think she's struggling, frankly, the Chancellor, to now try and find out what she can do, apart from taxing the rich, which is going to be the next thing. So, if it wasn't the pensioners, if it wasn't the small businesses and national insurance or the farmers or whatever it is, that's the actions that they've taken over the last year. They've done nothing for the economy in terms of getting people back to work, and it's not helped with the small and medium-sized businesses and the supply chains, frankly.
I mean, I'm afraid that's simply not true. And even the stuff we've seen published today gives the lie to that. So what the IMF said is, once again, Britain's growth will outstrip that of most of our peers. So when we took over, growth was the second slowest in the G7. This year, so far, it's been the fastest, and the IMF says going forward, it will be the second fastest, beaten only by the States over the next 2 years.
The IMF have also said we're going to have the highest inflation in the G7.
But we're going to have the highest growth of any European G7 member, second highest growth in the G7.
Don't gloss over the fact that actually people at home are going to have to be paying a lot more for whatever it is that they try and consume, because that is a big deal for the viewers at home.
So look, obviously we are dealing, as is the entire world, with inflation. But actually, what the IMF also says is it's coming
worse. The IMF is
slightly worse. But the reality is, the overall picture is that real wages went up by more in the first 10 months of this government than in the last 10 years of the Conservatives. What we've also seen... Sorry, to let me finish. What we've also seen is 31 billion put into the NHS, an extra 5 million appointments. What we've seen is 5 interest rate cuts, which will save those with mortgages hundreds of pounds a month. The 3 trade deals, which, as you say, we got, but you failed to get. And you were talking for years about getting deals.
No. We laid the foundation
with the US. No, you didn't.
We did. Penny Badenoch, as the Trade Secretary, was doing the MOUs, that's the Memorandum of Understanding, with the individual states in America, because when America does a trade deal, not all the states, it doesn't have control over all the individual states in what they can do. And the way that it was planned, there was a very good foundation for this government to come in and to actually take it a step further. Plus,
absolute nonsense.
There wouldn't have been this trade deal had Biden actually stood and won the election. The reason the trade deal actually also took off was because President Trump was elected, and we have a good relationship, obviously, with President
Well, yes, because Keir Starmer's built a great personal relationship with President Trump, as President Trump has said many times himself.
That's all semantics, but that is the reality. That is the structure, and that's how it works. So it's no use. You can't just take credit, we just did that. To get any trade deal, it takes years. They have to go into so many different areas. I know, being a member of the European Parliament, the European Union were trying to do EU trade deals, and they did a number of them, but the big one that really held up was called TTIP, and it was a transatlantic one, and that was trying to do an EU-US. That never got off the ground, obviously, because it's so complex. It was so complex. France, actually.
I'm sorry, Jacqueline, but this is
difficult.
You know, I mean, the one thing I'd say is you definitely get a gold medal for brass neck on this, because not even Kemi Badenoch's tried to claim credit for that deal. Plus, in the case of Europe,
I didn't say you can't claim
yes,
credit.
you just,
I said
you just
you
did.
didn't give any credit to the previous government who laid. You don't get a trade deal.
That's just
David,
not true.
You can't get, ladies and gentlemen, no country, no matter how good you are, will get a trade deal with all of the things that are negotiated within 12 months. It takes an awful lot of time of preparation.
But we did that with Europe. We did that with the States. And as you said yourself,
it had already begun.
No, but it hadn't. And as you said yourself, the Trump administration started from scratch. I think you just need to put your hands up.
Trade deals done post-Brexit.
And most of them were just photocopies of the European deals. It's only this government that's actually gotten proper trade deals. That was one of the great embarrassments. You argued for Brexit, but then you failed to deliver for the people. It's actually this government that's going back and trying to make it work and actually deliver for people through lower prices in shops, through the cooperation that will stop people smuggling, through the defence cooperation, through the fishing deals. The list goes on. We've delivered that. You simply failed.
Why are you polling so badly then? Because I'm listening to you, and if I've just, I don't know, if I've just beamed down from outer space, I'm listening to you, and I'm taking your word for everything. Everything seems rosy in your world. So why are you polling so badly then?
Change is really hard. We are having to clear up a almost 15 years of mess. And really strikingly, again, Jacqueline, has talked about many things, but one of the legacies she hasn't talked about is Liz Truss, her budget, and what that did to our economy. And look, change is hard, and it involves tough...
We've seen what Rachel Reeves has done in the last 14 months.
And it requires some difficult trade-offs, but we are making progress. But look, people are anxious for change, they are impatient for change, and they are right to be.
No, absolutely.
And that's what we are delivering. But look, I'm very conscious it doesn't happen overnight. We can't do everything at once, but that's absolutely what we're working on. And whether you look at the NHS and the more appointments,
so you
whether you look at the fact
people's impatience.
No, I think we are on the right track. But look, absolutely, is there a lot more to do? Of course there is. We are trying to turn around 15 years of damage, but we are making progress in doing that.
But it wasn't. We were in coalition.
Oh, so now it's not your fault?
No.
That's your line.
The agenda from 2010 to 15, we were in coalition with the Liberal Democrats. They had portfolios and we had a government. And things were ticking along reasonably well. They were ticking... There's always challenges, but reasonably well. We have COVID. We have a war in Ukraine. So
but that was all at the end. That was all after. I've never heard so many dog-ate-my-homework excuses.
Just stop for a minute and listen to yourself, because you clearly don't recognise it. COVID cost the economy $500 billion. And that's without then the tens of billions that obviously the government at the time tried to help people with their energy bills. Ukraine is still continuing. Fortunately, energy prices are now starting to settle. But your government came in and you'd been in... You're right, you were in opposition for 14 years. God knows what you were doing, because I tell you what, any ideas that you had, nobody still knows what you're supposed to be doing in any event.
But let me just get this right. So everything was going great until COVID.
Government,
that's your argument.
Apart from having Lord Ali and free glasses and free dresses and all of this sort of stuff, a transport secretary that had an issue over mobile phones. I mean, the history already of some people in your cabinet, and you're trying to lecture us?
Yes.
I think you need
NHS waiting list quadrupled. People are £8,000 per household poorer in this country versus other countries because of your government.
Correct.
It's just true.
I don't know where you get your figures from, but I tell you what,
IFS and Resolution Foundation.
Diane Abbott School of Arithmetic here.
Well, there you
absolutely
go.
Are.
I'm not Diane Abbott. I can do my
you're
counting,
not.
and I can count well enough to know that I've got to go to a break, ladies and gents. So much that we need to discuss after the break. China, Spygate, what's going on there, and I can tell you now, more bad news for Birmingham City Council when it comes to equal pay. Huge win for the union. I'll see you in 2.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst the UK enjoys some settled, albeit cloudy weather this week, it's going to be increasingly wet on Wednesday in Sardinia and Corsica. Also some patchy rain moving into Madeira, 1 or 2 showers for the Canary Islands, but a lot of fine weather for Iberia at the moment, having seen this low move away. But that's the low bringing some very lively thunderstorms on Wednesday to Sardinia and Corsica, eventually moving through southern Italy into Greece as well, turning things unsettled later this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow, more of the same. Most places will be dry and drab with the winds fairly light, so nothing's moving very quickly. Chunky area of high pressure sitting over the UK, acting like a lid and keeping things mostly cloudy. We've got some breaks in the cloud across parts of Scotland, so here it will turn a bit chilly where we've got the clearest skies through the night. Could also turn a bit misty. Further east, the cloud thick enough at times for a bit of light rain and drizzle to come and go through the nights. The cloud acting as a blanket, keeping the temperatures up at 8 to 10 Celsius for most. But it will be a bit colder in western Scotland where we've got those clearer skies. But again, here, that's where we'll see some sunshine through Wednesday. Elsewhere, sunshine in short supply, a little bit possible on the south coast of England, parts of southwest Wales, and maybe through the day it could brighten up in North Wales. The thickest cloud in eastern England, still some drizzle here and there, parts of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. Mostly dry and cloudy for Northern Ireland, central and southern Scotland, and indeed the far north of Scotland, with some outbreaks of rain likely across Shetland in particular first thing. But a good part of northern Scotland, across the mainland at least, should again see some blue skies and some sunshine. Feeling quite pleasant here with light winds and temperatures getting up to 12 or 13 degrees. Not all that pleasant across eastern England with some drizzly conditions and that thick cloud, and temperatures here again only 12, 13 degrees. With some brightness further south and west, we might sneak up to 15 or 16 Celsius. Thursday, well, kind of more of the same. If anything, a little bit more rain across northern Scotland. Nothing heavy, but some light and patchy rain on and off here. Perhaps a few more breaks over the Midlands and North Wales to reveal a bit of blue sky. But for most, Thursday is, again, mostly cloudy and mostly dry. That will continue through Friday and Saturday, but changes are on the way for Sunday.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 3 and 2, drivers face congestion with 15-minute delays expected to clear between 6:45 and 7 this evening. The M4 westbound from junction 41 at Pentyler to junction 44 at Lonlas is also congested. In Derbyshire, the A38 southbound between the A50 and the junction with the A5 132 has 20-minute delays until 10:30 tonight. The A38 northbound in Staffordshire has similar delays. And on the trains, disruptions affect cross-country services between Brockenhurst and Bournemouth, as well as Wakefield, Westgate and Leeds. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hello everybody, Michelle Dewberry, Jubes and Co till 7. I've got the Tory peer Baroness Foster and Labour MP David Pinto-Dushinsky. Now, Aaron, you've got in touch. We were talking at the top of the show about Nigel Farage, the fact that that guy has just been sentenced to 5 years in prison for threatening to kill him. Aaron says, Michelle, it can't be a surprise to anyone that people who trade in the currency of hatred like Farage, that they would therefore be turned on by those that they demonise. Aaron, my friend, It is not hateful to want to have control of your borders. And if you are indeed somebody who wants to have control of borders, because without that, you're not actually some kind of country, you're just basically an open free-for-all, doesn't mean, therefore, that people have the right to either suggest that they will want to kill you or perhaps even try and want to kill you. So I couldn't disagree with you more. But, of course, all views welcome, so keep them coming in. Let's cross to Birmingham, shall we? We all know that they've found themselves in a bit of a pickle when it comes to the council. Now, for years, you might have followed this story. I think it's been going on for like 12 or 13 years or so. And it's been an equal pay dispute. And it's been looking at whether or not the work and the roles that women have been doing should have been allocated equal value to the roles that were typically being fulfilled by men. I've got to tell you now that this has all now been concluded. Huge win for the unions. It says that, yes, these roles should have been equal value. It's going to give compensation to the women. It's a huge win for the unions. Is it a good thing or not, Jacqueline?
Well, I think, of course, I mean, I was a trade union representative for many years and negotiated excellent paying conditions for British Airways cabin crew a long time ago. And, of course, I don't quite know how they got to that because, you know, this is a large local authority. This isn't a parish council. They have huge HR departments. They have lawyers that they employ. They spend thousands on chief executives. And the fact they got themselves, you know, it's 2025. The Equal Pay Act came in around 1973, 74. And there's been big challenges and there's been a long way to go. And of course, you're going to get some, you know, funny jobs where they're not quite equate to a male or a female. But to get themselves into this mess when they've employed all of these people to make sure that they monitor all of this, I think is the first criticism. The second one is, it's not just that has got Birmingham City Council into the mess it's in. It's in special measures or whatever, it's bankrupt or whatever it is. I mean, OK, these councils have billion-pound budgets, but they are grossly inefficient. I mean, you've only got to look at what's happened over the bin strike, and I don't think that's quite resolved. And, you know, I think it looks as though the city is going to hell in a handcart, but it's a Labour-run council. It's a bit like Liverpool City Council, and, you know, that was in special measures. And I don't know what it is about these councillors, because it's not as though the people that work in the local authority are not paid well, that they can't recruit well, but they make the most appalling decisions. And, you know, the people that it affects mostly are going to be your council taxpayers and all of us. So who's going to bail Birmingham out? I have no idea. But it'll be us, probably.
So I just want to be clear, by the way. So what we're not talking about here is we're not talking about if you've got a cleaner and one guy is a male cleaner and the other one's a female cleaner, they're getting different wages. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the roles having equal value. So, for example, would a cleaner have the same value, monetary value, as like a bin man, a bin collector or something like that? So it's the value that was applied onto the roles. And what they're saying is that typically some of these roles were fulfilled by women, so the cleaners, support staff, whatever. Other roles were fulfilled by the men, so your bin men or whatever. That's what the argument all centred on, David.
Well, look, I mean, obviously, I think we'd have consensus that of course, we support equal pay for men and women. And, I mean, Michelle, you wouldn't put up with, you know, male anchors at GB News being paid fundamentally differently from you. That's not fair.
No. Let me push back on that. No, what I would say to that, it's not about a male or a female being paid whatever. I wouldn't expect to be paid the same as somebody if I wasn't as experienced as them, if I wasn't as skilled as them, if I didn't have whatever it was that was required for the role. So for me, my gender is kind of irrelevant. I would want to be paid the same as whoever it was if that person was at the same level, etc., as me. So I don't want special treatment because of my gender. Yeah. I want to be in a meritocracy where we're all based on
completely. And look, again, I'm not going to claim to be a detailed expert on this, but my understanding is this is a kind of legal scheme, and so it's not something that the kind of unions or government or anyone cooked up. This is actually a court, you know, applied scheme, so to speak. And again, absolutely, it does reflect those things. But I think there's a broader point here, which is actually around local councils, because obviously, you know, in the last 15 years, we saw huge cuts to councils. We saw well, hang on a second. We saw you know, council finances hugely stressed. What we've seen under this government is firstly more money put in, about a 6.8% real terms rise, but secondly, far more importantly, councils given a kind of 3-year horizon to budget across so that they can be run like businesses, because they do need to be run better. But you couldn't run a kind of business on a one-year horizon. And I know, because I worked for many years in business. So again, giving councils that is really important. The other point I suppose I'd make is that, Jacqueline mentioned council tax, and I think you're right, and we need to safeguard every penny that's used. I would just point out that the average Conservative council charges £300 a head more council tax than the average Labour council.
You've got about 20 seconds if you want to respond, because I want to go on to Chinagate.
OK, is that the best you can do? I mean, we've all got our council tax bills in, and they've all been... I'm in a Labour council on the Wirral. I have no idea what they do most of the time, frankly. But our council tax has increased enormously. Services are not great at all. And, that's across the country. But you can't keep going back to that we left everybody short of money when we were in government. That is absolute nonsense. It is nonsense. And we also tried to keep tax rates reasonably OK so that people would have some money at the end of the day. What you have done, you've promised all and sundry all sorts of things. You've done deals with trade unions with no productivity attached, and now you're up to your neck in debt, and let's see what happens when the budget happens. I mean, that's the reality.
Well, he's saying that what she's saying is not true, and she's having none of what he's saying. The only people that really matter is you guys at home, because ultimately it's for you to decide who you believe and who you don't believe and where your sentiment lays. Now, I want to talk to you about China after the break, because I can tell you now, this government really is getting pressured on what has been called Spygate. Where are you sitting on this? I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GBNews family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Jubes and Co. with me, Michelle Dewberry, Baroness Jacqueline Foster, and David Pinter-Dushinsky. Now, this one, I was itching to get onto this topic yesterday, but keen observers might have known that Donald Trump took up half of my programme, basically saying thank you. It was very awkward. That moment with Keir Starmer and Donald Trump last night, by the way, when he beckoned him to come to the microphone and then basically just blanked him once he was stood there. Was that a bit embarrassing?
I've got to admit, I haven't seen it.
Yes, you have.
No,
you're telling me that you have not seen... So you're telling me that you are an MP for the Labour Party and you haven't seen the speech that Donald Trump gave at the peace conference last night?
And so I wasn't watching the whole thing. I've of course seen a lot of the coverage, but I've not seen...
Well, I'll play it now for you then.
I've not seen the clip you're talking about.
You've not seen the clip of the... Have I got this clip of him? Go on then, I'll play it for you now.
Phone. Where's the United Kingdom? Where's Russia? Come here. Is everything going good?
Very good.
That's very nice of you here. These people all came in like 20-minute notice.
What?
So literally, he called them up, he shook his hand, and this is, you know, and just yesterday we saw Steve Wickoff thank the UK for all of its work on the
yeah, and
deal.
we also saw Mike Huckabee say that Labour was delusional when
and then the guy who actually negotiated the deal on behalf of the president thanked the UK in terms.
If I was Keir Starmer, I would have died 1,000 deaths in that solitary moment. It was embarrassing. It was. Come on now. And how you've not seen that, I'm not sure I believe that, I can tell you. But anyway, I do want to get on to Chinagate. I wanted to talk about this last night. We all know this situation, but let's just listen to Dan Jarvis. This was in the Commons earlier on.
DPP has given his assurance that the CPS were not influenced by any external party, any member of this government, nor any senior civil servant or special advisor working within it. And I want to be clear again today, as the government has before, that suggestions that the government concealed evidence, withdrew witnesses, or restricted the ability of witnesses to draw on particular bits of evidence are all untrue.
So Tories, senior Tories now, Jacqueline, they're calling on this whole kind of case to have a re-injection into it. You know, you're not having any of this whole situation. Tell us more.
Well, it started off when there were two assistants in Parliament, and then they were found to have been paid by China, and it all sort of blew up. And so this government came in, and the director of public prosecutions, who is Stephen Parkinson, a hugely respected man. What we do know is that these two people were actually going to be charged. But what the public prosecutor needed was the information. They needed to get information from the government, and he's the senior because what we're actually talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is treason. If you are talking about spying, this is treason, which is one of the worst things that can happen anywhere. Anyway, what happened was the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, was asking them for information for over 6 months. And unfortunately, with court cases, there's often a time frame where you have to, you know, have the information by. The government never gave the information across to the CPS, and lo and behold, the case fell through.
Well, look, so we are where we are now, and the Labour Party is coming under increasing pressure about this, particularly when it comes to the role of Jonathan Powell and people like that. Are you going to try and reopen this case?
Sorry, so look, I'm as frustrated as everyone else is by the fact that the CPS decided not to charge. But I do need to pick up on the factual inaccuracies.
Did your government influence that?
So, no, absolutely not. And look, let's be really clear. The reason we are having this conversation is because of the policy decisions and the legislation of the last government. It's true. The people were arrested and charged in 2023.
Yeah.
And it is a matter of law that you have to apply policy and the law as it stood in 2023. The evidence about China being a threat didn't change substantively from 2023 onwards and was several times resubmitted. But the reality is the CPS decided they could not charge based on the fact that the last government refused to designate China as an enemy. And by the way, we have no better source for that than Kemi Badenoch, who said when she was business secretary, and I quote, verbatim, China is not a foe. And so the reality is we can be as frustrated as we like, but when the case law changed to raise the bar for prosecutions, given that was the situation, that was the policy of the last government, and they failed to modify the national security law, they left us with the 1911 Official Secrets Act. They were begged to modify it. It took them till 2023. We didn't have the legislation. It's the last government's policy. It's the last government's legislation. This is why we are here. And finally, on the factual point, the CPS asked 3 times for evidence, and they were given it 3 times. It is not true they were not given evidence.
Is there anything that's your fault? Labour Party's fault? Because I've just spent 1 hour, I'm not being rude, I'm just genuinely trying to understand, because I've spent 1 hour with you, my first time meeting you. We're in a situation where Labour are performing disastrously in the poll. We talk about the IMF and all these different things, and all I've heard you say is that you think everything is pretty much the fault of the Tories.
So look, I've said change is hard. And look, are we getting everything right? Of course not. But the reality is, we have been in power for less than 18 months, and especially on something where charges were laid in 2023 when they were in power. Of course we are bound by the policies and by the laws they laid down. And it's just unrealistic to say otherwise.
Many people dispute that, by the way. There's been some very prominent people that say, actually, this case could be progressed and that actually the Labour Party shouldn't have done what they do. There's a lot of question marks that have been raised, but unfortunately, for time reasons. But worry not, though, ladies and gents, because we shall return back to this topic. But for now, David, thank you very much for joining Jubes and Co. Of course, thank you very much as well. Look, what do you make to everything that you've been hearing on the programme tonight? I can tell you, you don't seem to have much faith in these 2 very established political parties. That is putting it mildly, but for now, that's all. I'll see you tomorrow. Night.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow, more of the same. Most places will be dry and drab with the winds fairly light, so nothing's moving very quickly. Chunky area of high pressure sitting over the UK, acting like a lid and keeping things mostly cloudy. We've got some breaks in the cloud across parts of Scotland, so here it will turn a bit chilly where we've got the clearest skies through the night. Could also turn a bit misty. Further east, the cloud thick enough at times for a bit of light rain and drizzle to come and go through the nights. The cloud acting as a blanket, keeping the temperatures up at 8 to 10 Celsius for most. But it will be a bit colder in western Scotland where we've got those clearer skies. But again, here, that's where we'll see some sunshine through Wednesday. Elsewhere, sunshine in short supply, a little bit possible on the south coast of England, parts of southwest Wales, and maybe through the day it could brighten up in North Wales. The thickest cloud in eastern England, still some drizzle here and there, parts of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. Mostly dry and cloudy for Northern Ireland, central and southern Scotland, and indeed the far north of Scotland, with some outbreaks of rain likely across Shetland in particular first thing. But a good part of northern Scotland, across the mainland at least, should again see some blue skies and some sunshine. Feeling quite pleasant here with light winds and temperatures getting up to 12 or 13 degrees. Not all that pleasant across eastern England with some drizzly conditions and that thick cloud, and temperatures here again only 12, 13 degrees. With some brightness further south and west, we might sneak up to 15 or 16 Celsius. Thursday, well, kind of more of the same. If anything, a little bit more rain across northern Scotland. Nothing heavy, but some light and patchy rain on and off here. Perhaps a few more breaks over the Midlands and North Wales to reveal a bit of blue sky. But for most, Thursday is, again, mostly cloudy and mostly dry. That will continue through Friday and Saturday, but changes are on the way for Sunday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.